Guru. I'm Jax, and today we're going to look at question number 6 in our question series called A New Year and a New Way. This is a good one too, and it is, does life seem futile and hopeless to you? No. This was a very interesting question for me too, because the first thought that came to my mind when I looked at what futile and hopeless was suicide. And I've never been one to have suicidal thoughts as in to kill myself, but I sure have thought about death a lot. And when I sat and thought about how much I actually put in towards death thoughts, I was alarmed, because especially when I'm in a vehicle or around vehicles, like for instance, I would be driving along the highway and there would be a curve coming up ahead, and I'd be sitting there and I would visualize myself sailing off the curve or not making the corner, and I actually frightened myself to the point where I didn't even want to drive on highways as much anymore, because I kept visualizing that I would go off the road and kill myself. Now, did I ever have that happen to me? No. But I sure frightened myself enough with it. There were also times when I would be sitting on a sidewalk ready to cross the street in a busy intersection, and you know when the light goes, and you see a bus coming down the street at a really high clip, and I always wondered what it'd be like to stand in front of the bus, or drive into, when I'm driving on the highway and you see all those semis coming by, and driving into the path of the semi. And I guess I must have shared this idea enough with people that I talked about these kind of things, because at one time in my life I was in a domestic dispute with the father of my children, and we were separating, and that was not a very positive separation, and he decided to use suicide as the basis for his argument in his case, which was funny because I'm not a suicidal person in regards to taking my own life, but he decided, because I didn't wear my seatbelt, that was the grounds for his suicidal case. I had a saying back then that probably wasn't the best thing to say because it sounded like a threat, but it was exactly how I thought. I kept telling him, I said, if I'm not going to take myself out. I said, I'll take you out before I take myself out. And then what probably wasn't the best way to relay the information that I wasn't suicidal, but he eventually got the message. Anyhow, manifestation is a very funny thing, because if you speak something over and over and over, you can actually bring it into existence. And I had that happen to me. I was in a relationship with a gentleman who was a long-haul truck driver. And one of the routes that he would take would be from Calgary to Vancouver, which is about a 12-hour drive when you're in a truck. I've done it in 10, but that was like doing a small flying aircraft on the speed that I was going. But due to safety regulations and a tachometer, he can only go 100 kilometers an hour, or 60 miles an hour for you folks, on the highway. So 12-hour drive. And one of the most picturesque and beautiful areas of the drive is through the Rocky Mountains, and there's Rogers Pass and other areas where it's just absolutely beautiful to drive. But you're on this very narrow highway, and on one side of you is a mountain, and the other side is either a cliff or it's not good. If you go off the road, the chances of you living are not very good. Or if you do, you're going to wake up and you're going to be in pain for a very, very long time. So we were on one of these routine trips to Vancouver, and I decided that I was going to go in the back, because it was at that special time of the night when the sun is right, could be not any more annoying, and you can't adjust the mirror, and you can't adjust your, what do you think, what do you call those things? Whatever, you know what they are. The flaps that you bring down so that you can cover your eyes. Nothing was helping, and it was right in our eyes, and I was starting to get a headache, so I decided to go into the back and just lie down and read for a little bit. So we hear over the CB of a fellow traveler, a fellow truck driver coming from the opposite direction, that there's an accident on the highway. And we were in this stretch of the highway where there was a mountain on one side and a cliff on the other, and there was only a small guardrail keeping you from disaster. And so as we came over the hill and we saw the accident down below, we saw that it wasn't really even a serious accident. And I was fuming, because it's like, why would you jeopardize all these people's lives and cause such a traffic hassle? Just move your situation over to the side so that people can drive and life goes on. But they didn't. And so I heard about the accident. So, like the good rubbernecker that I am, I wanted to see what was going on. So I came out to the front seat and proceeded to get blinded again when I looked up. So I looked up and I saw this very strange shape in the sun. And I thought, well, maybe I'm seeing things because it started to look like a truck. Well, it was. This semi-truck driver decided not to notify us and to come into our lane. Now, we're going at probably a reduced speed, but we're still traveling at quite a good clip because we knew that our lane was fine, but the other lane was experiencing difficulties. So I lean forward, and I go, the gentleman's name was Yvon. I go, Yvon, the truck! And he looks at me, and he's very... If you would meet this guy, he was the epitome of relax. He'd be like, and he was driving, he's like, what truck? And I'm like, what do you mean, what truck? That one, the one like right there. And he had this amazing signature move. And I always knew, because I traveled with him quite a bit in the truck, I always knew that when he did this move, we were either going to die or something really bad was going to happen, because he would just get this, and he'd grip the steering wheel. And I saw him do that. And I just sat there, and you know how in a movie where they slow everything down and you actually see all these different aspects of what's happening all at the same time? Well, I saw Yvon do the signature move. I took an inventory of where we are and what our situation was. I saw that if we tried to veer in the left lane, we'd take out that accident and all those people and kill them all. I saw that if we actually looked into the other side, there was nothing there. There was a cliff, like it would have been bad. And of course, if we go straight, we're going to run head first into this other semi. And I just sat there and went, today's the day I'm going to die. And it didn't even dawn on me that I had this fascination with going head on with another semi. Like, mental note check to yourself. Like, don't be thinking of stuff like that, because dreams can come true. And Yvon just did what he did, and he leaned over as much as he could to the guardrail. And I couldn't see the road anymore, because where I was positioned in the truck, all I could see was the cliff. I just sat there, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And Yvon just sat there and moved over. That guy moved over, and we went whew, like that. And we were so close that our mirrors almost clipped. And the people, and then you know how the slow motion camera goes again? The people there, some of them were frozen and standing there thinking the same thing that I was going to do, like they're going to die. And the other people were actually running for their cars. I don't know if they were running to get away from the scene or running to get away from, like, to move their vehicle. A little too late, buddy, but anyway. And then the other truck driver had the audacity of getting on the CB radio and started yelling at Yvon and calling him these names, which I will not repeat, and telling him, what the hell were you doing, blah, blah, blah. And in his signature move, he picked up the CB and he goes, and exactly who was in my lane? The guy, you hear silence and, you know, crickets. And the guy didn't say anything else. But, oh my gosh. And I realized at that moment that I really didn't want to die. It wasn't that I was having death thoughts because I didn't want to live. Mine was about desperation. I felt so alone and so unwanted and so disconnected from the world. In fact, for many years of my life, I actually believed that I was adopted, because there was absolutely no connection between my parents and my brother. And it was like we were 4 individuals living in this unit of a house. And for me, the death thoughts were like, well, you know, if I passed away, it was like almost, you know how you've seen the movie, I don't know if many of you have seen The Christmas Carol, where he goes back into his past and or into his future, and he finds out that when he passes away that there's nobody at his funeral. That's what it was felt like for me. I actually felt that if I would have died, nobody would have cared. And I wondered, and that's where I would daydream about these death thoughts. And I thought, well, you know, if I actually died, would there be anybody at my funeral, and would anybody care? And that was a very lonely time for me. And I don't have those death thoughts anymore. And because now I know that I'm loved and wanted. And it took a long time and different healing modalities and different approaches to my personal inventory, my belief about myself, to understand that it wasn't that the fact that people didn't want me and love me, it was the fact that I didn't want and love myself. And as soon as I started to accept myself for who I was and look at these areas of my life where I felt like I was a failure and a loser and unwanted, unloved, and went behind them and began to dissect it, whether or not it was actually true. And I found out for a lot of it, it wasn't true. It was just my perception. And I started to learn to love myself. And the more I learned to love myself, the less I had with these death thoughts. One of the most profound methods that I used in order to help with this is called emotional freedom technique. If you go to my written post on Steemit, I include a link there where you can find it. And it has been the most freeing thing for me because it's helped me understand, and it's a form of emotional acupuncture. And what it does is that you get to the heart of the feeling, and then you do a series of tapping on your body, and you clear the emotional response, because then all you're left is the event. And once you look at the event without the emotional response, you can actually put a different perspective and spin on it, where you can see it from a different viewpoint, and maybe it's not so as traumatizing as you once thought. So it's been an incredible journey for me. I love life now, and I look forward to it. And it's quite a pleasure not to have these death thoughts anymore. So thanks for listening, everyone, and to question number 6. And we look forward to tomorrow to question number 7. And do you often feel self-pity? That's another good one for me. Take a look at our description box below, and you can see access and links to our Steemit blog that has more articles written by us and the rest of the questions in this series. And I hope to hear from you either by posting on Steemit your responses or down below here on our YouTube channel. Just have a great day, everyone. Bye.